From a big picture perspective, why is Australia attractive? We're attractive because, well, for a start, we're the 12th largest economy in the world. We have very well developed supporting infrastructure across power, across water, transport, logistics, storage, communications and the like. A lot of countries which have got some very rich agricultural land do not have that core infrastructure. We have a stable rule of law and well-developed legal principles. We have stable government systems. We have a highly educated workforce, and we offer proximity to key growth markets. And of course, we have substantial natural land and water resources. At an agricultural level, we are also attractive for a variety of reasons. We've got a long history of producing high-quality agricultural commodities, coupled with our clean green image. You look at what's happening at the moment in some other jurisdictions. China has just released a report after much pressure. The Ministry of Agriculture has released a report that they have compiled over 10 years. And that was a survey of their farmland. And what they found is that 25% of their farmland is contaminated by heavy metals. Now, bear in mind, some of that data is now 12, 13 years old. You wonder, with the rapid pace of growth in China, just where those numbers currently sit. And it certainly doesn't take into consideration what's actually happened with their water resources in terms of contamination. So our clean green image is a major factor for us. We have very well-developed infrastructure and supply chains, and also a highly skilled workforce. We produce products, agricultural commodities, that are attractive around the world. And we have a geographic advantage about being able to tap into the growing markets in the Asia-Pacific region. These are all key competitive advantages for us as a country moving forward in terms of attracting capital. But most importantly, the agricultural sector in Australia is productive, we employ best practice, and we are a net exporter. So if someone wants to invest in Australian agriculture and they want to actually tap into that production base for their own purposes in another jurisdiction, we are a logical place. There's very limited risk for us to go and close borders and restrict the export of agricultural goods and services. For us, we are naturally long agricultural commodities. And so for investors, that's a good place to be as an investment destination. So as a result, we are a very attractive investment destination. And as a society, we're having this very healthy debate at the moment about foreign investment. But there are implications around this as well, and I think we need to be aware of just how the debate can actually develop mythology. Earlier this year at the Sydney Royal Show, the hot topic discussion, it was actually put forward by one of the speakers that foreign landowners in rural Australia don't always make good local community citizens, and nor do they pay their fair share of tax. Two very interesting points of view there. I'd like to sort of touch on these briefly. So I think it's firstly quite disingenuous to paint foreign investors as a category of owners who do not make good community citizens. I know from experience that this can be applied very equally to locals. You only got to think about how you have disputes in neighbourhoods, be it in the city or in the bush, because someone is doing something. It's not restricted to foreign investors. Indeed, it actually goes the other way around for foreign investors. You almost need to try harder because you need to be able to demonstrate the social licence to operate. So it's an interesting concept, but I don't think it's a concept that necessarily holds water when you actually hold it up to the light. In the case of Hassad Australia, we have invested very heavily in each of the local communities that we operate in. We place a very, very strong focus on community engagement. We have achieved this across a wide array of initiatives. We buy locally wherever possible. We invest in the communities that we operate in. We use local contractors. We employ locally, but also more importantly, in putting our asset base together, we are bringing new families into communities. We participate and facilitate local community events such as field days. We're a member of the Australian Corporate Aid Group, which carries with it a representation on the board of the National Farmers Federation. And we've also adopted a leadership position in the agricultural industry in the development of advanced health and safety programs. And through such initiatives, we've been utilising experts from the mining sector, which has led that HSC development in Australia, and utilising their expertise to be able to develop our systems to best international practices and standards. We've invested probably a seven-figure sum so far in our HSC systems, but we are actively sharing that IP with other agricultural companies and also assisting our contractors to be able to upgrade the HSC standards. So for us, it's not just about Hassad, it's actually about what we give back into the community and into the agricultural sector to improve standards and reduce the risk of deaths on farms, which is a major area of concern across the sector. But we're not unique as a foreign-owned business in operating this manner. And as I said earlier, being a good corporate citizen is essential in order to generate that social licence to operate. The other part of the quote concerned taxation. Australia has got some of the most developed tax laws in the world. And indeed, Australia has made a considerable investment in its cross-border tax laws in recent decades. I think the issue here comes back to what are we dealing with. At the moment, there's a lot of discussion, for example, about Google and how much tax they pay in Australia and other technology companies of that nature. The problem, I guess, in that sector is you're often dealing with a product or type of asset that is not easily valued. It's unique to them. It's a unique IP, and they'll place whatever value they choose on it, and it allows them to create cross-border aspects in terms of their taxation. Totally different story for a company operating in the agricultural sector. We're dealing in commodities. Those commodities are priced continuously, every day of the week. There is no hiding behind and trying to say that a tonne of grain is only worth $190 when today's price is $280. It is what it is. And so from a taxation perspective, our tax position and that of any other player in this sector is very much based upon transparency, because the commodities are dealing with are transparent. So it's virtually impossible for an agricultural company to get away with selling commodity to an offshore party for anything other than the prevailing market price. As a result, you're locked into paying your fair share of tax. Yes, there are balance sheet structuring options available that a foreign investor can employ in the way they structure their balance sheet, and that can legitimately minimise tax. They are legitimate components of the taxation system, and indeed many Australian corporates utilise that as well. How many Australian corporates actually pay the standard rate of tax? Quite often you'll see press articles about corporate X or corporate Y who's only paying 15 cents on the dollar because they've been able to legitimately structure their affairs. That's just part of our tax system. If we want to change it, there's a bigger, broader debate to have. Hassad itself is an Australian company. We are fully subject to Australian tax laws. Indeed, we would actually welcome the problem of paying too much tax, as it only means that we've had a bumper profit performance. But sadly, in agriculture, they are rare years indeed. It's often argued that foreign investors come into Australia and deliberately pay over market prices for properties. And I have to admit, I find this argument quite difficult to fathom. Why would a sophisticated investor come into Australia and willingly, deliberately go and buy assets at inflated prices? And if you actually know any parties like this, please come and see my colleagues at FTI. We've got heaps of properties we can sell them. But you do from time to time get people who come in, and in their enthusiasm, they will overpay and get bullish about asset prices. That happens all the time in all sectors of the economy. How often do you see people have their Allen bonds, as Kerry Packer did with the sale of Channel 9? How often do you then see corporate X or corporate Y writing down the carrying value of an asset that they acquired 1 or 2 years earlier? It happens all the time. and it can happen